Hey, I'm Chuck Ainlay. We're in Nashville. This is Soundstage Studios, backstage studio. I'm a producer engineer. I work with a lot of the well-known country artists, but have on occasion worked with people in other genres. I've been working with Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits for like over 20 years, producing him for at least 20 years for his solo albums. And well, enough said. I don't know. Is that all right? You want me to start over?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Na 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 na
I've spent so much of my life as a mixer, so I think it helps me as a tracking engineer knowing what the end result's going to be. A lot of choice of microphones, just, experience. I've done it a few years, probably more than I ought to admit. And so, there's a lot of things that I've found that just work and will go there. I always try and kind of try something different though on every session. That way I keep learning. So I'll either, try some new mic preamp, try some new mic that I haven't tried, just so I learn what that's about. And I generally will do it in some instance where I know it's like the record's not dependent on it, But I also like to kind of like try and get outrageous too, and so not just always be comfortable. So I just try different things. And I think that's probably how I kind of came across ribbon microphones and how it could add a new perspective to the records I was making. Ribbon microphones tend to be warmer sounding to me in general. I mean, a condenser microphone always has that sort of zizzy top to it that on certain instruments like a saxophone or a dobro or a mandolin, it's just annoying. And whereas a ribbon microphone, it just seems smoother on the top, and so it just kind of pulls in that warmth, and you can sit it in a track. It's kind of the combination of different things, some to have some of that zizzy helps make the record sound high-endy, but if you don't have the warmth, then it starts to hurt, So different instruments that are kind of more warm and other instruments that have sort of that brighter thing to it, and you kind of get this full, well-rounded record with air, but with depth. The 88's got such a great stereo image without kind of a hole in the middle. It just seems like it's full all the way across and vibrant and lively sounding. I've used it for percussion setups where, the percussionist will have his full kit laid out, and used it as a stereo mic over the whole percussion kit. And it's you hardly need any close mics. It's amazing. I love it like on upright piano or outside the lid of a grand piano. One of the most beautiful uses I've had with the 88 is over in England working with Mark Knopfler. We've done a lot of work where we have a couple of Scottish guys and an Irish guy. Anyhow, they're sort of Irish-y sounding musicians with like fiddle and whistles, flutes, and accordion, and just the three of them with that mic out in front of them. I may put some close mics on the instruments, but that one mic just picks up that picture, and it just fills the speakers from all the way from left to right. It's just huge. You can't even imagine it's only three guys making that sound. I'm always kind of perplexed by the idea of people trying to save money or using their friend because it's a good hang for tracking. Because to me, tracking's where it all starts. You get the tracks right, the performance is going to be engaging because they know that this is something special and they try a bit harder. You have to give them something inspiring in the headphones, whether it, to begin with great sounds, but then also a great headphone mix. The musicians will respond to that. And then if you start out with something small, or everything that you pile on top of it, like as you overdub, is you're not going to try and strive for anything bigger. So to me, if you start out with big, huge sounds tracking, as you pile on top, everything's going to have to fit in there, And if everything's small, it's easy to put something on top and you think, well, you've got something good, but you get to mix and you start pulling up all these small sounds. It's really hard to make that ever achieve anything. You can make it sound good. There's ways to make bad recordings sound good, but it's never going to sound great. If you start out with really great recording, then you can achieve something really fantastic at the end. Say, for instance, drums, I generally, like when I start getting sounds on drums, the first thing I pull up is the overheads and try and get the overheads sounding good. A lot of guys, the first thing they do is start like working on the bass drum, and the snare drum. But for me, it's all about getting the overheads sounding great. And then you just kind of bring everything up in there. And drummers will tell me, they go, there's just something about the way you make drums sound that it sounds so real. And to me, it's all about having the overheads to get that air and distance. I mean, when you close mic something, the sound is so compressed into the microphone that it doesn't have that sort of chance to blossom. And then I use a lot of room, particularly on drums, in which case I generally do a lot of compression on the room mics. But it's to just kind of get it all kind of moving. And I feel it just seems like when you've got that space around the sound, it just kind of can fit into a track better. Like with acoustic guitars, it's generally stereo kind of miking techniques, and just to get more air, even though I may kind of like balance the stereo mics closer together to kind of position the mic in a space, it still has that kind of air around it. Starting out, I kind of learned the obvious, that the cardioid microphone rejects most other sounds other than what it's pointed at. And so, I was all about cardioid microphones, just about everywhere on everything. But now, I'll tend to use more omnis and bidirectional microphones. And, it allows for pulling in a bit of the ambience of the space, which to me just makes things sound a whole lot more natural. And leakage is good. It's if you the sound of something a bit further away, if the leakage is uncolored, and it can sound really good to give it a sense of that space, whereas a cardioid mic's going to really color the rear side. Using omnis or bidirectional mics, that leakage sound is a good sound. So I tend to use a lot more of the different polar patterns now. And it really, once again, you can't understate how important it is to just get out of your seat and go into the room and move the microphone rather than start turning on knobs, I think that's where you get the more unusual sounds, I could mic a guitar cabinet from a distance rather than right up close. When we were doing Knopfler's album, recent album, we had Kim Wilson, the harp player or singer from the Fabulous Thunderbirds. He played on a lot of it, And, he had like the bullet mic on his harp and had a guitar amp. He wanted to be in the same room with the guitar amp. We had a rather large booth for him to be in, and I had some just different microphones in the room. Basically, if he was going to be playing harp acoustically, I wanted to be able to capture the space of the room. And then I had other mics in there that I had thought might be room mics if I was using the guitar amp. And instead of using the mics that I'd kind of chosen to be the room mics for the guitar amp, one of the it was like an M49, I think it was. It was actually right on top of the guitar amp, like, maybe 5 feet up, but it was just up above the guitar amp. Pulled that up, and it just sounded unbelievable, and really didn't even use the close mic on the guitar amp. It was just quite a great sound. He was thrilled anyhow. So, it's, like I say, it's just kind of things that just happen, and being willing to let them happen, and not try and make everything technically correct, In general, music's all about kind of getting the listener to connect. And pristine isn't necessarily the most heartwarming type of sound, It's cold in a lot of cases, and but a bit of pristine in there kind of can draw you in with a bit of, like, say, ear candy, So it's kind of to me, it's a combination. I don't think anything's one or the other. So that's why there's no exclusively great microphone, no exclusively great mic preamp. It's all choices. And sometimes, you might, in your mind's eye, think this is going to work, and you try it out and it doesn't. And so you just got to be willing to move the microphone, to change the microphone, to change the preamp. You'll know if it's like knocking your socks off, then you're in the right direction. Yeah, we can go on and on about the technical details, but the studio with all this great gear, and it's a really lonely place unless there's really great musicians and really great singers.